All right, let's do this. Pow, 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 pow. Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to Bugs Need Heroes, a podcast where an artist and an entomologist team up to illustrate the aspiring abilities of insects by creating bug-themed superheroes. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Kelly.
Producer Derek and Desdemona are also here. Before we get started creating this bug-inspired hero, what's bugging you, Kelly?
Oh, it is very dry here in the
Oh,
Northeast.
it's wet here, so.
And my hair is super staticky and just sticking to my face and everything around me, which is annoying. So last night, my husband and I went to a Michelin star Szechuan restaurant, and it was amazing.
It had the
It's called
tire star, huh?
Peppercorn Station, if anyone is in New York, but fantastic, so good.
Wow.
The portions are meant to be shareable, so we got like 3 things, and I can't wait to go back. But the listeners may know this. I'm an intensely white woman, and it was spicy.
Oh yeah,
Spicy for me, but
You
so
always
good.
be aware of that.
Yeah, but fantastic food, and I would love to go back and get too spiced again. How about you, Amanda? What's bugging you?
Oh, what's bugging me? Not much. I'm actually doing okay right now. I'm actually not that whiny today.
Oh,
It's
you're
a
the
little
Kelly
rainy.
now.
I'm the Kelly today. It's doing okay. The only thing really bugging me right now is that my 2.5-year-old is incredibly 2.5. But that's not like great podcast fodder to be like, my child. I guess that's not true because there's like so many mommy podcasts. But no, we're doing good. They're excited to have the holiday season, see all their family, all their
Oh
friends.
yeah.
The only bad part is it's cold enough now that I can't take them outside, and so they're just wreaking havoc inside my house. But
Well,
yeah,
I think
yeah,
this episode comes out in January,
probably,
I
likely.
believe. So, hope everyone had an excellent holiday, whatever holiday it is you celebrate for this time of year, and a
Even if the holiday
wonderful
you
new year.
celebrate is staying inside and drinking hot cocoa.
Yes, well, I'm doing that right now.
Are you a cocoa or a cider girl, Kelly?
Both.
Both.
As long as it's
Same.
warm and
Same.
spiced, I'll take it. And I'm very excited. We have a special guest today, Christy Bills from the Utah Natural History Museum. Christy, what's bugging you? And welcome to the show.
Here
Is it rainy or dry in Utah today?
uncomfortably dry. Yeah,
Mm.
we should be having snow by now, and we've had very, very little. So we're unhappy about that. I would like to be blanketed in gorgeous white fluffy snow, and we've had very little. So it's kind of a sad December for us. We would like to be having lots more snow. We are always concerned about our Great Salt Lake, and we want it to be full.
Mm.
So also it's, not really a good Christmas time if it's not snowy. So like Salt Lake wants more snow.
Yeah, coming to Salt Lake as a kid, because we have family there, the one thing I was always really jealous of was that they had white Christmases in Utah, and we never did. And I remember there was a year when we would always drive down in the Astro van because it was the 90s, and they booked it down to Utah so that we could have a white Christmas. And I just always remembered that of like, wow, a white Christmas. We don't have these in Oregon.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
We used to have white Christmases in New Jersey, and it's been a minute. So yeah, when I was a kid, we had a lot of snow around Christmas, and I would say the past 20 plus years, not really. We're lucky to get a little dust, and I don't
Feels
like
like
it.
in Utah it's either hot or snowing, but maybe that's just my
Is that
recollection.
accurate, Christy? It's hot or snowing in Utah. That's it.
We have a lovely autumn and we have an astounding spring, but they are briefer than we'd like them to be. It's true.
Mm. Yeah. We had cousins come up once and they're like, why is this place so green?
Yeah.
And I was like, because it's Oregon and you're from Utah? I don't know what you want me to say here, So, yeah. But no,
they got mad about it. They were like offended by how
they're like
green everything
offended that we
was.
were so green. Yeah, they're like, oh, why do you have trees like everywhere? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. We got a lot of trees. So, yeah. Oh well. So you are from the University. Oh no, you're from the Natural History Museum, which is part of the umbrella of the University of Utah.
Yep, it's true.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Derek and I have a connection to University of Utah. Our Opa, our grandfather, is a twice graduate of University of Utah. Both his undergrad and his PhD were achieved there. So
in biology.
What did?
No, in first in German with a minor in Russian and physical education, which I did not know about him till I texted my mom like, "Hey, we're having a Ute on. Where did Opa graduated?" And then his PhD, I believe, is also in German languages.
Wow,
so
that's impressive.
Well,
he was University of Utah's Man of the Year in 1960. Fun fact.
How cute is that? Oh, a lot of.
Well, I know you've walked past a picture of him, and I have no idea.
Maybe there's old yearbooks online. They used to make yearbooks, which seems crazy. I've seen some from like the 1930s because I'm a little bit whack about history just in general, local history. So there may be yearbooks that he's in from the university.
Are those
We should
digitized?
look.
Yeah. I would Google like the Marriott Library, that's the University of Utah Library, and see if you can find something. There's also our museum has moved in the last 12 years, and we used to be in a building, like one of the original old buildings of the university. And I've seen a video of people moving around in that old building from like the 1950s. And I don't know, it'd be amazing if you saw him on that video, right?
Yeah, I'll have to look.
I found it. I'm gonna dig through this while we're talking.
You found it?
There's one other. I found the collections, so I'm gonna dig through. I did a search for his name. I'm gonna dig through, see if I can find his little pictures. There's one other connection if you wanted to tell that story, Amanda.
Which one? I don't know what you're talking about.
His final story.
Oh, our Opa, brilliant man that he was, did also die at a Utes game.
Oh.
Doing what he loved, watching Utes football. The problem was he went to Africa, which was like the last thing on his like bucket list of things he wanted to do before he died. So he went to Africa, and then he got home from Africa, was like, let's go to a Utes game. But he checked off the last thing on his bucket list like a fool. And so
you gotta leave something hanging.
You gotta leave something undone, Opa. Come on.
Derek, did we play the game when we were at the conference? Did we play the game?
No, I don't think we did.
What was your grandfather's name? With an E or a O?
With an E.
And what year did he die?
2013.
Yeah.
In Salt Lake, obviously.
Yes.
Okay, give me just a sec. And he died in 2013 in Salt Lake City, right? Salt Lake City?
I think it was an away game, or it may have been an away game, so it may have been in Provo.
Okay.
But
oh, look, they have a bunch of Grandpa's books. I just Googled it. In the catalog. The book Opa wrote about Holocaust survivors in Germany.
Wow. So he was a published author too.
Yeah, there's at least 4 books here.
Amazing.
And his unpublished memoir, which is full of redacted information we're not allowed to talk about. So they haven't published it, I think, because they're waiting for that stuff to become unredacted.
Was he born in Los Angeles or Idaho?
Idaho.
Oh. So his middle name was Marvin?
Correct.
Did you just find him in real time?
Yeah, he's my 8th cousin.
Amazing.
Wow!
Yeah, I just love the genealogy. So
there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know our uncle had a similar story where he found out a girl he was interested in dating also a relation. I think through like Draper, Utah. I think the town is named after some relative or something. There's very much a founder effect I've noticed. I feel like when you go to Utah, you see I think the same nose on a lot of people.
Yeah. That same, I have it. That same little, theirs is a little bit more upturned than mine, but that same little button nose is in a lot of girls over there.
I mean, everybody
Well, so
is eighth cousins. That's not too distantly related.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
one time, I was dating a boy, and then we found out we were like first, like very closely related.
Very
Oh
close.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
My husband's middle name is my maiden name. And so when we were first, I saw his name, like, Cody has sent you a friend request. I was like, oh, I got to Google this really fast to make sure we're not cousins.
But yes, Utah is a
Boy.
very interesting place.
It is a little bit peculiar in a certain way. It's true. Yeah.
But it sounds kind of charming. It's
Yeah, it is. Salt Lake City is like, it feels to me like the right size city, but it's also feels like a small town. Like there's plenty of like opera, ballet, queer culture. It feels very comfortable, but it also feels like a small town, and you run into people but you also can meet lots of new people at the same time. So it feels like just the right size. Yeah.
There's a whole philosophy book here, Derek, that our grandfather wrote. I've never read. All right, sorry. I don't know how much of that will make it to the podcast, just because I don't know how much.
We'll have to run it by our mom.
We want to reveal. But no, it's very exciting we're eighth cousins now, so you're in the fam. Welcome to it.
I love that so much. It kind of segues into like the museum work that I do, because I spend like a fair amount of time looking up genealogy and history to tie into the work of old collections and collectors. Like this is part and parcel of the work that I do at the museum.
That's incredible. And so when you're getting these collections, right, and some of them I'm assuming are 100 plus years old or around that, how do they make their way to the museum, and how do you verify the claim of this is how old they are, this is where they came from?
Yeah, well, you trust the data on the labels, but sometimes it can be difficult to figure out. So have you seen like a botany sheet? It'll have like a lot of data on it. You have a lot of room on a botany sheet to write all kinds of information, but an entomology label, you have like an inch by an inch, right?
Tiny.
So if a collector has written, maybe they're just their initials, or they've written a first initial and a last name, then I have to do a lot of sussing out about, okay, they've written 1930 and it says maybe Woodbury, and could it be Angus Woodbury, or is it Angus's cousin, or is it their son, or is it how far could Angus have driven in 1930 if he says it's Dry Canyon, but there's 7 dry canyons, but it's 1930, so he couldn't have gotten very far. And the week before, I know his data label, he was over here. There's no freeways, so he couldn't have gotten.
Oh my God, you're a detective, Christy.
A history detective.
You're a detective.
Yeah, a lot of the collections are detectives. We're working backwards in history, and then we're looking up their obituaries. Like, oh, this label says 1919, but he died in like 1921. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
It's really fun.
How many of the really old, these really old collections do you have? Is it mostly old, or are you still getting like fresh sort of specimens in?
Yeah. Well, so I came into the collection that I manage 26 years ago, and it's easier for me to just count by drawers. There were about 1,000 drawers at the time. And the first year of my job, I got the second year, I got a collection that was about 5,400 specimens. And then about every few years, I would get about a similar size collection. And it seems like a normal person who works full time and then has collecting as a hobby in a few decades of their life, they can amass about 5,000 specimens. That is just generally like,
Wow.
I mean, some people do more, but if you're
Yeah.
working and making data and also doing other things like
Mhm.
going to meetings as a hobbyist or whatever, 5,000 is about the chunk that I normally see. And these
Okay.
people are incredible. So amateur entomologists are often kind of at the forefront of moving the science forward in some ways. They understand different species really well because they have time that those of us working in academia or professionally don't have time to do. They can really specialize on groups
Yeah.
that don't have like economic or medical significance. We don't have funding for that. Or we just don't have time. So these amateurs are just accumulating these meticulous, gorgeous collections. And then when they are
Oh, that's awesome.
they're so amazing. And then when they are elderly or moving on and they don't want to deal with it anymore, they have to find a place for it to go. So I get contacted and then we get them. So hopefully it's before the individual passes on so that I can ask them questions about
Yeah.
their data. Hopefully that's not always the case. Sometimes they hold on to them for a long time and then they pass away and then somebody in their family has to figure out where they're going to go and it might not be
Yeah,
done
that's
well.
tough.
Can you imagine though? Like your relative dies and you're like, okay, we got to go through their stuff. And then you open a door to a room and there's 5,000 bugs in
Bugs.
there. And you're like, oh, did you know this about Grandpa John? That he had
I've
5,000 bugs?
I've been slacking. I think my collection is maybe 100-ish. I need
Mm.
to
Well,
up
you have
my
a few
collecting
decades
game.
to get it together.
No.
Well, like we had that happen, Amanda, when
Oh,
we were cleaning out when Grandma
oh
moved. We were
yes,
going through all of
that's
her
true.
collections, and I found several jars which were just labeled "good rocks,"
Good
but they didn't have
rocks.
any other information except that they were
Oh,
good rocks.
They
oh my
were
god,
rocks.
you better
They
have
were
kept
good.
those.
I kept the rocks, yes,
Okay.
but we ended up deciding that this wasn't like a quality assessment, but rather a moral assessment. That these were just like
Yes.
upstanding rocks you could bring home to show to someone and be like, oh, these are
These
upstanding.
rocks?
They're virtuous rocks.
Virtuous rocks.
And there was a snail
That
shell in
kind of
there, so
rock.
that was very fun. And I understand, Christy, you also deal with many shells. I would like to hear more about those.
Oh, you have a moth
Yes.
collection?
Well, so we moved from an old building that didn't have climate control and
Mm.
not a lot of security and not adequate space. But was super charming, right? It was an old building like, the Field Museum and American Museum of Natural History. And
Yeah.
so,
I love the Field Museum. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
it had a lot of oak and gold hand lettering, and it was just an old, cool building, but it didn't have any temperature control and lots of leaks and stuff. So it was problematic for the collections. So we moved into this nicer building that's all state of the art, best practices. It's great. But when we moved into that new building, somebody needed to manage the malacology collection. And they were like, how about you? And I said, okay, I don't know a lot about shells. And they were like, you'll figure it out. So um, it's luckily we have a crack crew of malacology volunteers who are just so smart. They're so wonderful. And they handmade all of these acid free boxes. So the organization is just a delight. Numbered cabinets, numbered shelves, numbered boxes, everything database. I'm
Wow.
really pleased with it. But the history of the collection is really charming. So the story, as it's been told to me, is that there was a mom with kids in, this would be the 50s or 60s. And she had a child who kind of needed some focus, needed like something to do. And she traveled with her husband, who was a researcher, and he gave a lot of talks around the world. And a physician told her the best thing to do with his child is to find a hobby to focus his energy. So they collected shells. And so as they traveled
Aw,
around the world, she was like, okay, we're just going to collect shells where we go, and that will give him something. It'll be good for him.
to do.
So he grew up and she just kept, and she made it like her avocation. That was like what she did. And she built this shell collection that eventually like she traded with people around the world, writing letters. And Then she donated to the
Wow.
museum, and she worked at the museum to amass this massive collection. And I have all of her letters and the collection. It's numbered, and her ledger. It's precise, and it's wonderful. And her kids come and visit now with their grandchildren, and they can pick up a shell and say,
Oh,
"Oh,
that's so
I remember
lovely.
being on the beach with my mother and, some
Oh,
exotic
wow.
location." And yeah, so, and now researchers come and look at the collection. So we have a dry collection and a wet collection. And the wet collection is, with the soft tissue of the animals. And I don't take in any more exotic shells because we're in the Intermountain West, but we do collect things, or we have accessions from like the Department of Natural Resources when they're working on I'm doing this, like mussels and snails and stuff that are,
Bivalves.
yeah, from
Yeah.
Yeah.
local streams and stuff. So we still take in accessions. Yeah, it's still growing, but Yonka's gone now.
It's
She's a cool lady. She's super cool.
what an amazing, I mean, you're not just storing specimens, you're storing stories and lives, and
Yes.
it's
Family
incredible.
legacies. Yeah, family legacies.
Yeah,
And I feel
legacies.
really tied. I love the bugs. I love the bugs so much. They're so exquisite and lovely, but I love the people. Some of who died way before I was born, but I feel so attached to holding on to their stories. And so then when people use them for research, I'm like, yay, that's a bonus. I mean, that's what I'm here for, obviously, but also like tending to these people's lives' work. And
Yeah.
yeah, it feels very tender to me.
But you said you have some um, mollusk shells that are local in like streams.
Yeah.
How complete do you think that collection is?
Oh,
Are you missing any like locals?
How full is your Pokédex of local shells?
yeah. Who could know? I wouldn't even be able to say because it's not a focus of my study. So actually,
Yeah.
though, a book came out just a couple years ago called The Mollusks of Utah. And the author relied partly on our collection. So
Oh, that's
I
cool.
would think that
That's cool.
he would think that the book was thorough. Yeah, although anybody who writes something like that probably thinks, that this is a starting point and things will change. Um,
Yeah, we never really know if you've got everything, but
yeah,
you can make an estimate. Um, but the bugs are really like what you started with, right?
yeah, the
And you have
bugs.
an extensive insect arachnid, yeah,
It
myriapod
creepy
collection,
crawly. I wanted to
arthropod.
ask, has there been a case where, like, you look through a collection and find something that people thought was missing from collections? Or, like, I thought I had all the mollusks. Look through the collection, and now it turns out there's a whole mollusk I was missing. A whole bug I didn't know was local to the area one time. Is that something a collection can do?
Yes, collections can tell us all kinds of stories in a lot of different ways. It's not like there's something we know is out there that I want to have, usually. It's not like that. It's
Uh-huh.
more likely something was collected in the last 100 years, and we go through and maybe we have a whole drawer of beetles that are sort of unidentified, or they're only identified to family. And then an expert will say,
Mhm.
hey, I'm traveling through Salt Lake. I work on this weird little family, and I've sorted through your chrysomelids, which are just like a giant family of seed beetles. And you have all these just identified to family, but actually you have a weirdo little genus in here. And I'm so delighted to find it. That actually happened like a few weeks ago. There's an amateur beetle guy, and usually people who are amateurs work on butterflies or moths or big scarabs or more like fancy groups. And he's such a fun guy. His name's Cameron Ramsey, and he works on this tiny little beetle group. And he's like, yeah, they're nocturnal and they're high altitude, and they only come out after it rains. And I'm like, wow, that's a tough
Oh,
one.
jeez,
And
that's very specific.
yeah, and he said, and I found three of them in your collection, and they were all from high peaks around here. So he said he's going to go look for more, but I didn't realize we had them. So he looked through groups that were identified in one way, and then it turned out that he could know that they were other things. And you rely on other entomologists' reputation. So it really is kind of relying on other people's integrity. I've only had
Yeah.
by
It's a bit of the honor system.
Yes, one time that was a problem. Usually, if he works with other people who trust him, then I say, okay, if you come in here and tell me it's a haliplet, I guess that's what it is. So that
Yeah.
was exciting. And it's very exciting when a whole group that's just chrysomelids, then somebody says, oh, it's actually these special ones. And you're like, oh, then we know them better. Oh, it's like a friend who tells you more about themselves. And you're like, oh, now
Well,
we know who you are better. It's very special. So that happens.
Sleepover with the Beatles. Who do you like?
that is so cool. So cool and amazing that researchers and amateur naturalists can come through and just like show up and help. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, also that they have spent like thousands of dollars of their own money to pursue something that feels so important to them, and
Hmm.
so much of their own time and resources. And I wish as a professional community we had more ways to support them, their travel, their yeah, the least we can do is just give them like a platform and give them respect and let them, work when we know they can be helpful. But yeah, I wish there was more travel grants and things like that because
Yeah.
they're driving hundreds of miles and doing all this tough work, and I'm not going to go sleep at the top of a peak and wait for it to rain so I can go find those beetles. But the work they're doing, is really important. So very cool stuff. Um, yeah.
Well, like you said, there's really not a lot of money unless it's of medical or agricultural significance. There are no grants for the little guys who aren't doing much. We might find them to be fascinating
Yeah.
and really interesting, but if they're not affecting people, we're very anthropocentric. Then you're not getting bucks, you're not getting money.
Right. And I got bills to pay. I got mouths to feed.
But over time, we might find that those things might have significance that we didn't realize. I always say that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's like this really common bug that's all over outside, like swarms the building. We have to put up signs that say box elder bugs are outside the building. They're not harmful.
Oh,
This is our thing, right? And people are like, oh, whatever. And I always say the reason I collect those and still pin them and put labels on them and put them in our collection, even though people are like, oh, whatever, is because of passenger pigeons and bison. People used to see them in swarms and like, oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, just take them for granted. It's no big deal. They'll always be there. There's too many. It's not a big deal. And now there's very
right.
few. So
And
we
now.
never know what is special and what could go away and what has significance in the future. So I say, like, don't take anything for granted. You never know what's here now and might not be here in 5 or 50
Yes.
years. So
Oh, it's like how Victorians had a third spice on the table: salt, pepper, and something else. And we don't know what the something else is because no one ever bothered to write it down. Because it was just a given that it was salt, pepper, and third mystery spice. And we have no idea.
Wow.
Because who writes down the salt and the pepper on the table? Nobody.
There's like an Egyptian thing too. Like ancient Egypt was its number one trading partner. We'd have no idea who it was because they never wrote down where it was. They're just like, everyone knows who they are.
Right.
Yeah, why bother? We've
Because
lost
it's
so much
common
history.
knowledge.
Yeah.
You don't need to write it down. Everyone knows that Ptolemy the Elder is a jerk.
How dare you? Don't slander Ptolemy the Elder.
Ptolemy, he had it coming.
Yeah, so I feel like every day at the museum, we're part of that. We are here today, but we are like part of history, and we never know. Like people are collecting bugs for student collections, and then the professors are like, this is just junk. Do you really want it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll take your student collections. I know the students are just collecting like the commonest butterflies and the commonest things, and they seem like trash to you, but
you just don't know.
Most of the bugs in my collection were collected before we knew what DNA was. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So
now can you use DNA on these old bugs?
Yes. And when I started my career, it was like, well, you can't get DNA from old specimens. And now we can. So I think the bugs that we have are going to continue to tell new stories in new ways, and we don't know what they are. So I will take all the common stuff. I obviously have a bunch of exotic stuff too, which is fun, and we preserve it in new ways. So we have pinned, papered, frozen, alcohol, Riker mounts. We have all different kinds of mounts and stuff. But I don't know what new stories are going to be told, and I'm not going to throw anything out. Like I'm a museum person. I hoard everything that has data and things that don't have data so little kids can look at it under microscopes. But I always think,
Well, what's kind of
Mhm.
interesting about these like older specimens you've got pollinators, right? With pollen on them, you can potentially test pollen to understand not just the insect at that time period, but the entire community that it was living in when it was um, collected,
Exactly.
which is wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. Have you done anything with pollen grains
I don't, but I make
on bees or
assessments available.
mosquitoes or
Yeah, other people do. Yeah. And we have a new researcher at the museum. She's new. She's like been there for 2 or 3 years, which is very new. Who
Just
takes
a baby compared to these collections.
well, when somebody's worked at the museum for like 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's like they're very new still. She takes leaves around an area and washes them to compare like the soot or the pollutions or I guess
Mm,
you would say particulates that are landing on the leaves, and she filtrates
yeah,
them and then compares like the different kinds of particulates that are on leaves. But she thinks she can do that with some insects. So, they're killed and then they're put right
wow.
into a drawer where they're sealed into a microclimate. So if you take I don't know, a beetle or an insect wing and then wash the particulates off of it, you could compare 1920 to 1980. So that's some research she's
Mm,
planning on doing too. And that kind of work has been done with bird feathers to compare pollutants in the air in different areas.
right.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think there's a lot of stories that these specimens have yet to tell. So I feel very protective of them.
Well,
Yeah.
we did the pepper moth a few episodes ago now, and you could track more or less in real time the pepper moth going from this white birch tree colored moth to then the industrial revolution. Now everything's covered in soot. He gets a little darker, he gets a little darker, and pretty soon he's this black sooty moth. And then when they cleaned up again, hey, we should stop pouring
Yeah.
soot
They
into our breathing air. The moth lightened back up again. Do you find that, and I just don't know that you would know that unless you were looking at moths. Do you find anything in your collection has that same sort of like linear story that they can tell across the collection?
With a story like that, you'd have to be doing population studies. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But the specimens are available for somebody to be doing those types of studies. There's like,
mm.
thousands and thousands of bugs in there for people to be doing studies about. Somebody contacted me a couple of months ago and said, I'm doing a study on the wing shape of, not shape, but size of butterflies in a particular park in Quebec. And I was like, I don't know that I have bugs from a
Oh,
park in
Hmm.
Quebec. And they were like, yeah, you do. I looked in your database. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. I
you
love
do.
that. And they said, I just need you to measure or loan me these butterflies so I can measure how the wing size has changed in this park in Quebec. And I'm like, we will measure it for you. I don't want to mail it to you in Quebec. But
Yeah.
so those kind of studies are being done by particular individuals. If I
Yeah.
wanted to study any one thing, I mean, all of the material is there, but I'm busy doing
Mm.
that and my own kind of thing. So, yeah, it's more like I'm a library, but I don't read every book because I would have to
Who's got the
be
time?
1,000 years.
How could you?
Yeah.
Well,
I think bugs have the unique quality of just one park in Quebec could have its own little guy. And like he's the Quebec butterfly. He doesn't live anywhere else but this one park in Quebec.
Mhm.
And we've seen that with a couple species now where it's like they live on this side of this river, but he's different from the guy who lives on the other side of the same river. We saw that with Daddy
with
Longlegs
daddy
in
long legs,
particular.
yeah.
And so, like, yeah, bugs can tell us so much about not just a general time and a general place, but like this time
Yeah.
at this place.
Mhm.
Interesting, deeply interesting to me.
Well, you said that researcher was able to look up that you did have that butterfly, and I'm assuming that's because of digitization. How did that process work trying to get everything from the museum up online?
Well, to be fair, not everything is, but
Still going.
so when I started my career, if somebody wanted to know how many monarchs you had and where they're from, they would email you. They first have to know that you had a collection, and they go to the bishop list of spider and insect collections, and then they would look at the list, and then they would email you, email you, and ask, can you tell me the monarchs that you have? And then you would go to your drawer and type all the information up and email them. Crazy. So now if I
Very
want
time
to know
consuming.
about all the monarchs that anybody holds, I can go to GBIF, the Global Bioinformatics Index, something. And then, but there are other databases that are a little bit easier to use, that are online, that are NSF funded, that are, you can map. Oh my gosh, I didn't think I would be so excited about this, but it's taken many, 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 many years. So there are ways to kind of speed things up, but it really is just bug by bug. It's just looking at labels, and it takes a lot of back knowledge. So again, I'm going to reference botany labels. The information is spelled out. And in an insect label, you kind of have to know by the age of the label, you have to know that 89 sometimes means 1889, and it sometimes means 1989. And you have to know that the little tiny handwriting that's written with, in a 0.4 or a 4-point font, you have to know when this guy was talking about himself or when the name changes to their son. And you have to know the dry canyon is in this county or this county. And you have to know when a G is a P. And so it really takes a lot of knowledge, and you have to be able to read cursive, and you have to be able to figure out provinces in Russia. And so it takes a lot of geographic, historical, biographical background. But it's so satisfying. And these databases are so powerful to be able to look at all of these collections at the same time and say, show me monarchs that have flown in May, show me monarchs that fly in this county, show me monarchs overlaid with a map of swallowtails. Yeah, it's really cool.
Wow.
It's
for comparative studies. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's very neat.
Natural history museums, our job is to keep all of these specimens as safe as possible into perpetuity. So when I do tours, I tell people, imagine a fly that's died on a windowsill. Now I'm going to hand you that little crunchy, delicate thing, and I need you to keep that safe for 200 years with the date you found and where you found it. Just keep that safe for 200 years. Now, that's my job, but I have like 500,000 of these. But also, I need you to keep it safe, and I need you to share it with as many people as possible around the world. So I want that fly to be known in all of its beauty to as many people as possible, to school children and researchers, the whole gamut. And so we don't want to hide things in back rooms. We want to share it. And databases allow us to have the most transparency. And I try and tell people, like, I've made a handout how to query our database. So I don't just say, oh, go look it up online. It's like, this is how you do it. I want you to know if you're going to go to this fun tourist town, you can look up a list of the data of the butterflies you might see flying in that month that you're going. So I want my information to be shared. Or if oh, my grandpa was a student and he might have collected butterflies, let me show you how you can look up and see if we can find them,
That's cool.
Because I want the information to belong to the people who are interested.
Right.
Yeah. Amanda, you can see Derek put an example up of what it looks like, the pins. And this is what mine look like in the box behind me. It's actually behind me somewhere.
So much information. Wow. Yeah, it's a lot of information about one little, but I could see how that'd be so useful. Not that long later, like, oh, okay, like now I can see, oh, honeybees are getting smaller, honeybees are getting bigger, or butterflies are drifting west for some reason, whatever that is. And then when you start to notice these trends over collection, that can spur a further study.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Is there any bug in your collection, or whoever, I it doesn't have to be a bug, but that you're like, someone needs to come check this guy out because he's got a story to tell and no one's telling it yet? Is there anybody that you're like, that's Somebody come find out.
I mean,
or just everybody.
It happens too often. It happens kind of often.
Mm-hmm.
I'll run across something, and sometimes it's a people story. The amount of times I've sent messages to people that say, "Hey, I noticed your mom's obituary, and I have her water striders or from when she was in college, or are there any field notes in your attic, or family
Oh,
wants to come see
you gotta.
them," or so there's the people part, and then
Mhm.
I don't know butterflies as well as I could, and so there's a butterfly
Mm.
community here in Salt Lake, and sometimes I'll send pictures to the butterfly researcher guy who Todd, he's so brilliant and so kind, and I'll say, "Could this possibly be labeled right?" And he'll say, yes or no. He's very, very helpful and kind. Sometimes I'll just see something really odd, and I might send it on to somebody, but there's just it would be limitless. I could do that all day. Yeah, it would be fun to just do that all day, go through the collection and just like, this seems a little too big or this seems a little too small, or if I could just do taxonomy all day, it's so fun to
Oh, the joys of taxonomy. Yeah.
yeah, just
Also the madness of taxonomy.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff though. But when somebody comes in and says, like, this is the group I work on, I just want to look at this group, it's such a delight. It's so nice to be able to get those things
Mm.
out for them,
Mhm.
and have them say, oh, nobody's looked at this in 70 years. I'm so excited that you have this. And I'm so excited to learn more
Wow.
about it and help you put proper names on these that haven't been looked at for so long. So
So what are the big pitfalls of a collection this big? You mentioned climate control when you moved buildings, but what are the harrowing feats you must overcome when collecting? Besides just you got to keep all these bugs dry, I assume,
that's
and
not the
then
problem in
within a
Utah.
certain temperature range.
Yeah, you're in Oregon.
No,
Got a
oh, I guess
different
that's true.
thought.
In my neck of the woods, you got to keep them dry. So what do you have to do in yours? You have to keep yours wet.
Yeah, actually, in the room that we're in, our museum has 3 large collection spaces for paleo, anthro, and then biology. And in our room, we actually raise the humidity above ambient.
Ah,
So because we're so dry, and then
to keep
the
them from
idea, of course, is
desiccating, I
just to
assume.
keep it stable is the most important thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, more than it would be because of ambient temperature. We keep it a little bit more humid and a little cooler, so it's consistent, and we have temperature and data, humidity loggers, and then to keep it free of pests. So we have pest control. Nobody eats in that room. And there's no live
Mhm.
plants allowed in the building. Everything gets frozen before it's brought
Oh,
in. Um, and then we do a pest check consistently. We're very thorough about that. If anything were to have dermestids, we freeze it for a long time. So pets,
Mine were recently ravaged by carpet beetles. Just little.
yes.
Yeah, I lost quite a few bugs.
Mm,
That's my fault for improper storage, but I wasn't expecting them to get into my box.
yeah.
I don't know how they did it. And ate a whole Carolina locust,
oh,
which is a big bug.
yeah,
That's a big bug.
It's a pretty big bug, yeah.
they are really good at that. They are. We're
They're
in
the
the
best at what they
foothills
do.
in kind of a semi-wild area, so we have mice that we have to be concerned about. So we have traps,
Mhm.
and mice are a very big concern because they will eat bugs and everything. You know what I mean? They'll eat paper
Right.
and
They'll eat everything in the drawer
yeah. So
before you've even realized they're there.
yeah.
I've had them eat bars of soap. I've seen them do
Oh,
that. Yeah.
why? No,
Weird.
little mouse, stop that.
Were they in trouble by their moms? So was
Yeah.
the
They were using dirty words, those mice. They said "butt" to their mom. Get the soap.
So pests are a concern, but it's mostly just managing vast, you know, thousands and thousands of specimens and trying to get them databased so that people have access to
Mm.
it. So it's just managing too much stuff. I don't even have that large of a collection. There's way, way much larger collections. And I'm not trying to have the biggest collection. I just want to have the best managed collection. I mean, not that I'm in competition, but I just want to have a really well managed collection, not the largest. So I want the data to be. There's a Wyatt Earp quote that is fast is fine, but accuracy is everything. And I'd rather everybody I train be as precise as possible rather than quick. And we have, a drawer might have 2,500 specimens in it. And so if it takes one student a year of their internship to database that drawer, then I'd rather it took them a year and everything happened precisely.
You don't want to have to go back
and
and fix it.
smooth as fast. Yeah, exactly. So when you get a new collection, say, okay, I give you my 5,000 bugs.
Thank you.
Do you categorize? Here you go. Do you keep that as a collection and call it the Amanda collection? Or do you take all those specimens out and try to put it into the greater collection? Like, okay, Amanda had 10 stick bugs. Now I'm going to take all of Amanda's stick bugs and go put them with the other 10 stick bugs in the stick bug drawer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They would need to be integrated unless there was some special reason to keep it separate. Like, I don't know. If it was part of like your thesis and they were maybe very small, I might keep them together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give you my one shadow box for my PhD. Here you go.
If they were mites on slides, maybe, but no, they'd be integrated. So they would be frozen if they were, pinned to be safe. And then there's a lot of paperwork. First, there's a lot of paperwork. You have to sign something that says you didn't collect anything illegally, for one thing. And then,
that's got to be a huge concern in collecting.
Yeah.
Is the legality of collections at all.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing a story once, I think it was on PBS, and they were talking about some guy, he just loved these butterflies, and he caught like every single one of those butterflies. Like he single-handedly drove this butterfly into endangerment because he just caught every single one he found. And he had like thousands and thousands and thousands of this one butterfly. So, but anytime someone would like stop doing that, he was like, it's not illegal. And they're like, yeah, but it's bad for the butterfly you claim to love. So is there a lot of regulation about collecting? Is that fairly new to the scene? Is that, I don't know. What are the laws of collecting?
Okay. It's really important not to collect in national parks. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
You did not know this?
In Oregon, it's pretty much don't pick up anything off the ground because the birds are all protected, the whales are all protected. You can't touch anything.
Okay.
We operate the podcast as if Amanda knows nothing.
Yes, I'm the stooge. That's how this works.
Okay, if you're in a national park and you see a dead grasshopper, you cannot pick up a thing in a national park. Okay. Yeah. No national parks. Caves, completely right out. You cannot take a thing from a cave. Caves are highly.
They don't even want you breathing in caves, if I'm honest.
Because they're very delicate biomes. So unless you have a permit, no caves, and state parks vary. So if you have a permit from a state park, some state parks are heavily regulated and some state parks are like, we're cool. So it depends on state parks. And then different states have different rules. So it varies by state. So some states are like, Wild West, do your thing. If you're on BLM land or private land or whatever, and some states are like, not even in your own backyard. They're kind of weird. So, but
I've done research in state parks before where we needed either a permit or I can just measure stuff. Yeah. Again, it depends on what you're looking at. And again, like Chrissy said, where you are, what state.
Yeah. Leave no trace.
There was a mention of caves, and recently there was a dropped Cheetos bag in
the dropped Cheetos bag.
Yeah, and it's wrecking the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
They had to send in people to go get the Cheeto bag. And then I think they found that it had already, caused a whole devastating effect on the local ecosystem. Just this one dropped Cheetos bag. It was a full Cheetos bag too, which I'm like, how did you drop a full Cheetos bag?
Cave systems are so delicate. They're so delicate. Yeah.
It has no natural predators.
The Cheeto. It just
I'm its natural predator.
yeah, true, me too. I'm the natural predator of the Cheeto. Yeah.
Christy, do you do any collecting?
Yeah,
Yeah, do you personally collect?
So I do an arthropod survey at a local park. So I work with our parks department, who are lovely people. They're really helpful, and they're interested to know what they have at this particular wet park. It's there's a Jordan River flows through urban Wasatch Front here, and there's like a small pond that's kind of created here, and it's a very urban area, but the pond gets herons and cormorants and kingfisher and muskrats, and it's really cool. So we're trying to rehabilitate it, a whole bunch of community groups, and so we've been working kind of on an arthropod survey to see the way the arthropod community might change over time. It's not giant. I think it's a fascinating place for like an intersection of human and nature needs. So we've been collecting there with students and stuff, just to see the way it might change over time. Also, I collect fireflies in the Intermountain West as part of a firefly project I've been doing. So about 11 or 12 years ago, we started a community science project to ask people where they knew fireflies were in the Intermountain West. Actually, we started in Utah, and then about 5 years ago, we changed to learning about fireflies in the broader Intermountain West. So previously, we only knew about 2 or 3 populations, period. And
I was going to say, I think of fireflies as a East Coast bug, not a Utah
Yeah, we have
bug.
many over here. We are inundated with fireflies.
She's being swarmed. She's being hugged by 10,000 fireflies as we speak.
Oh, I wish.
To live the life.
But out west, yeah, you guys don't have any, right? Not many, like a few.
Oh, in Oregon, I think we have a firefly species, but he's not flashing. He's not dingle-dingling around.
I've found a few. They're not super common, and you kind of have to know what they look like to like start. They don't have I've never observed the flashing patterns that they're so famous for in the evening, but perhaps I'm not looking in all the right places.
You've not been on a mountain after it rains, Derek.
That's true. I haven't.
That's the problem.
How do citizen scientists help then in this
firefly?
It's super great. It turns out that people in rural communities actually have been seeing them, and a lot of ranchers and farmers knew about them. So once we started asking people, first of all, 99% of people were like, what? I didn't know. We don't have them. Totally shocked. But then enough people were like, oh no, I've seen them here and here and here and here. And it turned out there were actually fireflies in at least 27 of our 29 counties. So, yes. So once we started asking people, I started going, there's only like 6 weeks. So it's a lot of me driving around and like verifying these sightings and coordinating people to go meet me and at 10 o'clock at night in a dark field in some off, marshy place.
Oh no!
We collect.
I hope you're safe.
Stay safe out there.
Mostly, we do have rules that I try and make myself or other people go in pairs because strange things happen.
Yeah, buddy system.
Yeah, we have had a volunteer break their leg. We have had police call on us. Yeah, it's a little bit of
them firefighter hunters are here again.
There's a person in our community we've never seen before. It's got to be dangerous, and so,
well, you don't have the drones we have over here right now.
They're here too.
Yeah,
Kelly. Here.
Yeah, we have
really?
Here
They're
too.
out there too.
They're everywhere, Kelly. Like drones.
Ooh, they're riling up New Jersey like.
Yeah, New Jersey seems to be the ones that are really frothing up about it.
Well, I saw a TikTok yesterday that we have in Salt Lake, so. Yeah, so
I prefer fireflies.
I prefer male drone bees. Anyway, so you go out, you're trying to find all these. Again, I think we're back to the salt and the pepper and the third mystery spice. People don't know that they're witnessing something miraculous or something rare.
Yeah.
Until someone comes along and says, actually, you found fireflies where they're not supposed to be.
Well,
quote unquote, not supposed to be.
Yeah. So, because I'm crazy about history, all of Utah's newspapers historically have been digitized. So I went
Oh,
back
wow.
and looked through all the rural newspapers. There used to be a lot more. And I looked for lightning bugs or fireflies, and I could not find a single reference. I thought I would see something, but I guess people just thought, like,
Yeah.
Something.
you know, of course, they're there, so we don't need to talk about it. So
Yeah.
I couldn't find a single reference. And I read a lot because occasionally it would come up. There was like a softball team, or it would be mentioned in a play or something, but no, it was never mentioned in since the 1800s. So anyway, now we know that they are in a lot of different places all over the state. And then, but the really cool thing is we do have some specimens collected from Nevada, Wyoming, Idaho. Colorado has a zillion. They're all over Colorado as well. Yeah. And then I'm working with Montana now as well. So, and New Mexico. The people in New Mexico are lovely. Anna at the biopark down there is working on them with me too. So, the fun thing about science that I love so much is instead of being business and secrets and competition, it's networks and collaboration. And ooh, guess what I found? I want to share with you. And do you want to work with me? And like, let's build together. And I can't wait to tell you this. And then I have something you might use. Can we work in partnership? So that's what this Firefly project has become, is like finding new partners and bringing in new people and like building a thing together and finding ways to share. So I love that.
I think the younger, like my generation of scientists, and maybe the one before me, is a lot more interested in collaboration. We're not competitive. We're all a team. We're all here for the greater knowledge. Before that, it was like a bunch of older
The
white
Bone
dudes
Wars.
who just want to butt heads and argue and not share. It was a race. You know, who's going to do this first? Who's going to publish first?
Yeah.
And it's so much better now, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's because there's more women, but it might be.
Oh, no. Say the quiet part out loud, Kelly.
and plenty of like lovely men too, and non-binary folks. But it is better. The younger generation is very collaborative.
Yeah.
I love it. I love working with people.
Yeah.
It's the best part.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the bugs. They're the best part, but the people are the second.
We're seeing here, like, you could be studying ladybugs and Christy could be, studying these butterflies. And then you guys don't even know that your two studies overlap in a really interesting way unless you talk to each other and say, turns out the butterflies have been steeds for the ladybugs this whole time. And they are waging war against the aphids, or, whatever it is. Something not as fantastical as that. But, like you don't know that they're like, cultivating the same resource or something, unless you talk to each other.
Do you have a favorite bug, Christy?
Favorite little collection?
It varies all the time. I mean, it's different live things versus specimens. Sometimes a specimen will be so tender, it'll bring me to tears. I mean, I really get moved by old specimens and their labels and the stories that they tell. I'm really fond of my live pets bugs at home. Ernie from Sesame Street and his doodle bugs. I think that really inspired me a lot. And I like roly-polies. I like isopods. So
I love
have pet
them.
isopods.
Yeah.
I also have beetles that I
Did you just get some, Kelly?
I was going to order some. I did my master's research involved roly-polies, and I have such a soft spot for them.
You're kidding!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it about?
Yeah. Oh, I was
It's
doing
about how they're cute little guys.
about how cute they are.
Yeah.
Very scientific. I was looking at predator-prey interaction and how the presence of a predator changes the behavior of prey. So I used Armadillidium vulgare and Procellia laevis. So we got a roller and a runner in there, and introduced a wolf spider, and watched how they moved. Do they freeze? Do they book it away? Are they wiggling their little antennae? What are the behaviors that are happening the minute they get either a whiff? So I isolated stimuli. So either they could see it, they could smell it, It was I put them all on a snare drum so they could feel it move,
Uh-huh.
and then gauged behavioral changes within each presentation of that stimuli or combinations of stimuli. Can they smell it and see it? Can they feel it and smell it? Yeah, the whole thing.
I like to imagine you
Was my
writing up
next project.
your notes of like, like, "Professor, I need to acquire a snare drum for my research." Like, "What do you need a snare drum for, Kelly?"
We called it the Thunderdome.
Love that.
2 bugs enter, but 2 bugs also left. We
Also
didn't kill
left
them.
because I need these specimens to stay alive.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I just have to say, like, that almost brings me to tears because, like, I remember being just like 5 years old and pulling up stones and looking
Yeah, me
at
too.
rocks, looking under rocks for bugs and collecting potato bugs and knowing that's what we call them and knowing not much about them.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell, like, every little kid, this is like my hugest message when I work with children. If there is anything in nature that turns your brain on and just makes you so happy, like trees or clouds or dirt or the running of a creek, you can grow up and study that. You can grow up and study
Mhm.
hydrology. You can grow up and study rocks. It's for you. You know what I mean? And I don't think kids get that message enough. And like to hear that you did that, like I want to tell that little girl that I was, this could be your work. You could be a scientist. Nobody told me that,
Mhm.
it wasn't until I was in high school that I kind of got the thought of it. But oh, that is so amazing. It makes me so happy. Oh,
Thanks.
so for a
Well,
while,
I've told this
uh,
story on the podcast before that the whole reason I'm an ecologist and entomologist, when I was little, my dad brought like a kid's swimming pool in the backyard. And I grew up in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey down the shore. Anything I could catch, I bring it home, I put it in the little kiddie pool, water or not water, and we learn about it. What kind of snake is that? Oh, it's a hognose. Oh, look, they flip over when you scare them. This is their behavior. What do hognose snakes eat? And then the next day, I got to put him right back where I found him. Oh, I brought home some praying mantis. The mantis goes in the tub. Let's talk about it. What do they eat? Where are they from? A big thing in my house growing up, nothing is yucky. Nothing.
Mhm.
Bugs are cool. Snakes are rad. Frogs are amazing. Absolutely nothing is gross or icky. And especially because I'm a girl. My dad was like, I do
Mhm.
not want my girl growing up being uncomfortable for no reason
mhm.
about things that she should be cool with. My brother was more icked out than I was. But that was my life. That was my childhood.
Mm.
And because I had such supportive parents, that's why I'm a scientist now.
Oh,
And I flipped rocks in the backyard for roly polies all the time.
oh, hats
You
off to your
just stop from flipping rocks.
parents. Oh, I
They're
love them
awesome.
so
Yeah.
much. Oh,
Thanks, me too.
oh. Well, I wanted to offer that kind of support to kids as well. So I have a lot of background in working with children through my children's schools because they went to co-op schools. And then I taught some classes through the museum. And then I just felt really called to offering that kind of support to kids. So for about 8 years, I ran a nonprofit that I made up called Play and Learn Outside, where I worked with kids that were in domestic violence shelter. And I just took them outside and let them roam in wild spaces that weren't too far from the city so that they could come back to again and again and establish a relationship, and let them play in creeks and climb trees and find dead snakes.
Oh, I
And,
love that.
just like, we're going to just follow your lead and then give them the names for the things that they were finding because kids are so tree blind now. And even the adults I was working with didn't know these places, and almost every child couldn't name a dandelion. Almost every child hadn't had ladybugs land on them. Children are so detached
Oh,
from nature now, and the charming things that you and I got to experience of like whole, even the wealthier kids, they are not holding potato bugs. They're not like they're
Mm.
having organic contact with nature. And the things that schools have time for is just like, okay, here's a thing, fill out the worksheet, do what learning is
Yeah.
expected of you. And they know that.
yeah.
They're like, what am I supposed to do? But they're not like allowing their imagination. They're not like piling rocks and fording streams and making mud things.
Collecting leaves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just playing. So I did that for about 8 years. It was really, really
That's awesome.
satisfying. I wish I had the energy and the time to still do it, but I really want children to more get the message that you can pursue this. Your love of nature can go all the way through your adulthood, you know, like you and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
kept going, you know, like bugs, that's it. Yeah.
Well, they're so interesting. I loved everything, just everything.
Yeah.
And I think Amanda's kids are going to get some isopods pretty soon too.
Pretty soon, assuming that their dad lets it in the house. I've begun laying the groundwork. My husband is a I don't
He's
like
afraid.
bugs fella.
Yeah.
He's scared of them. But here I am doing the good work. I'm gonna convert him one of these days. I don't think I'll ever get him on spiders because I think that's like deep in his brains. But I could probably get him to hold a roly poly. I think if I laid enough work.
I'm gonna start up a new colony in the lab. I think
Yeah.
this spring or summer, and think about some research I might want to do with them because I love them so much. I've been working on mosquitoes for my PhD, and they're fascinating. But roly polies
Can you
are adorable,
Can you
easy.
pin a mosquito? Are they
You have to use paper. It's like a paper point for really
Uh-huh.
tiny things you can
Oh.
use. Yeah.
It's called
I hadn't
pointing.
thought about like the different gauges you have to have of needles to like very carefully
They
put
just
it through.
explode their little body
Yeah,
trying to put a little pin through.
there he's gone. I don't have him anymore.
She.
He's just
You
a pile.
you see
Oh yeah,
me all
sheesh,
the
you can't
time,
pile eggs.
Amanda. It's interesting. You have one
I
every day,
do.
and it's an issue for me because most bugs that you see are going to be default female.
Or female.
Interesting because I on this podcast I default to she so
Oh,
much
okay.
that
And then today it's been all he.
and
Yeah,
I find
I noticed that too.
I
Usually you
think
say
it's
she.
because I'm nervous that there's another person here, but I tend to default to she speech with the bugs because I know that they're all I don't know something about it, something I'm feeling squirrely today. I just so want people I don't know maybe this is one of those things where like when you feel nervous you default to like what you think is like acceptable speech, and somewhere deep in my this is gonna get cut now, sorry, deep in my patriarchy brain it's telling me that I should default to he.
Huh.
Hate that for me.
I wrote a whole
I
essay
hate that
about
for you.
that actually because I feel really strongly about it.
Oh really?
Yeah. So
Okay, well I will remember now and always do she.
yeah. So why are you
I tend
nervous?
to default to they.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
well
Why are you nervous? Haven't you been doing this for years?
oh yes, but
Ooh.
the thrill of the kill never really goes away, does it? I'm gonna cut all of this. Ah! All right. So what I've taken from this interview mostly is that Jurassic Park is going to come from Utah, between the bug collection and all the dinosaurs.
Possibly.
Here it comes.
Wait, the desert has such great bugs. I get tired of hearing about dinosaurs, but we have the best bugs here. We have, first of all, we don't
I hate to
have
tell you, you're in the wrong location to not hear about dinosaurs.
we don't have like as many ticks. They have Lyme disease
Yeah.
as much. And we have really cool tarantulas and velvet ants and Jerusalem crickets and tiger beetles. And so we have 4 different species of velvet ants right around the museum. And when it's tarantula season, they come right up to the building and they're so soft and fuzzy and cute.
I didn't even know that tarantulas lived in Utah. I knew that they were lower, that they were creeping up from Central America. I didn't realize they got that high up into the country.
Yeah, we get them right at the building. They're so dumb and cute and soft and sweet. I wrote a whole handout called Teddy Bears of the Desert about them, and I just
I love that.
That's
one
sweet.
time I took a group of children. I have one girl who I've been mentoring for about 10 years. She's so lovely from the time she was 6, and she's just tarantula crazy. So I took a group of children, her and like half a dozen of her friends, to this place where I knew there were tarantulas. And we introduced a male, and he drummed at the hole of a female, and the children were watching with their little
So
eyes
cool.
big. And she came out and he drummed, and she was like, okay. And then they went down into her burrow together, and the children were all like watching. And then he emerged, so she didn't eat him. And when he emerged, the children all applauded. And then a little boy looked up at me,
that's
and
so
he said,
sweet.
are they married now?
Yes, I was about to say something similar. He found his lady bride.
So cute.
carried her over the threshold into their burrow.
The burrow.
That's so cute.
Oh, best story.
Yeah.
That is the best.
Yeah, the desert's full of
That's very sweet.
just wonderful, wonderful bugs. I love it so much. We're very lucky.
So, is there anything else that you desperately need people to understand about collecting or about your collection in particular?
The bugs that museums hold are the information we want to share. And if
Mhm.
somebody wants to start a bug collection, there's a ton of information on YouTube. But they should make the data labels with the country, the full year, their name. And if somebody has a large collection, like of any size, they should establish a relationship with a museum so that they know where it's going to go if anything should happen to them, so that the collection doesn't go to waste. So I think that's really important, because that happens all too often.
So if you want to start a collection, are there any places that you always recommend, like, oh, try this place? Don't get your butterflies off Amazon or whatever. Although I guess
There's ethical ways to do it if you want to purchase things. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not saying people shouldn't collect butterflies, but there's a lot of other groups that need to be studied.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's a lot of other groups that need to be researched. So if there's another bug that interests you, like wasps are very, very cool. And there's a lot of tiny wasps that are super strange and colorful that there's not a lot of work done on. Gosh, there's a zillion bugs that are understudied. It would be pretty easy to become an expert in a group, like internationally, in 3 or 4 years. So if somebody wanted to make a group their interest, you could work with other researchers online. And, like entomology is for everyone. It is for everyone. The supplies you need are not that expensive as long as you have professional pins and appropriate storage and you make nice labels. You can make a collection, but that's not the only way to do it. Some people don't want to collect, and you can use iNaturalist if you can take really good photos. That's a fine way. You don't have to make a collection. I think collecting is consumptive and it doesn't have to be that way. You can also collect live things outside and make observations. That's a great thing for young people to do, is to just collect a couple bugs, see if you can keep them alive and make notes in a journal. Nature journaling is a wonderful, wonderful way to interact with bugs. And there's just a lot of great books published about bugs historically and more modernly. That's a really wonderful way to learn more about it. The other thing, now I'm wound up. The other thing is,
Sorry.
and I know this is like kind of the point of your whole podcast, but I just want to double down on this message, is that learning to love insects and not be afraid of them just makes your life better, because insects are all around us all the time. So when people have a fear of bugs, it makes your life not as good. You know what I mean? Because wherever you are, there are bugs. And now it's winter, they're sleeping around us. But during the summer, they're like flying, they're underground, they're crawling. And so if you have like this fear of the natural world, of the earth that we live on, it decreases the quality of your life. Going outside and spending time in nature decreases depression, decreases your quality of life. So if you spend time outside, you'll be happier. And one of the 5 top reasons that people don't go outside is because of insects, and it's because lack of knowledge. So just learning what things are actually dangerous, and that you're mostly safe outside, and that the bugs are your friends and are cool and interesting and fun and beautiful, can make you be a happier, healthier person.
Yeah, exactly.
I get pretty wow.
Bugs are friends.
Yeah, and they're gorgeous and
Bugs
fun
are friends.
and weird. Yeah.
And bugs need heroes. And you can be a bug hero today.
Christy's a bug hero, absolutely.
Christy is a bug hero. Well, it's been so great having you. I'm so jealous that you work in a museum, although it sounds like maybe I don't want to work in a museum after all. But it's been so great. And next time I'm in Utah, it sounds like Derek's going sooner than me. But next time I'm coming to Utah, I'm going to track you down. I want to say, do you remember me? I was on the podcast with you and I really want to come look at bugs. And I'll harass you to come and let me in.
But also ESA next year.
Oh, are you going to be at ESA next year?
Yeah.
It's in Portland, which means you'll
We
get
should
to
all
meet
get lunch
me. Yeah, let's have lunch. Okay, so now we're on museum time. A year from now, we need to have lunch together.
Sure.
At ESA.
Yeah. I'd love it. That's no big deal. It's in my head. We'll do it.
All right.
Nice.
We'll take you to the insectarium and you can look at their bugs. Their bugs are still wiggling around though. Kelly, anything else you want to say before?
I had a blast. This was awesome. And if I'm ever in Utah, I'm coming, Christy Bills.
Oh,
I'm gonna come check out your collection.
For you.
I would love it.
I'm gonna lock you two in a container and see who eats who.
No,
And-
well, look at my isopods. I will talk about isopods with you forever.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Sure. I would love that.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, it made me
All right.
so happy.
Oh, it makes me happy that you're happy. I love that.
Well, if you want to be part of a community outreach, find a program like our friend Christy Bills with fireflies. I'm sure there's one near you. Please get involved in your local bug research with community outreach. If you want to outreach to us, we're on all the places. We're on Reddit. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. You can come find us. Talk to us.
You
Speak
can
to
email
us.
us. We love
You can
that.
email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. You can find all of our information at bugsneedheroes.com. Just type in Bugs Need Heroes and you'll find us. We're there. We're out there. And we love you. So goodbye. Aggressive at the end there. Sorry. Bugs Need Heroes was created by Derek Conrad and Kelly Zimmerman. Hosted by Amanda Niday and Kelly Zimmerman. Bugs Need Heroes is produced and edited by Derek Conrad with some assistance from Chelsey Bawden and a few cats. Character art is by Amanda Niday. Our music is Ladybug Castle by Roll Music. Got a bug question? Email us at bugsneedheroes@gmail.com. Check us out at bugsneedheroes.com, and most of the socials are under Bugs Need Heroes. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, Christy, so I love wolf spider. They are my favorite spider family, and I think criminally understudied. I have plans. How do you pin those guys?
They
You
stay
don't,
in alcohol.
right?
They stay in alcohol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's no way to really get one otherwise.
Yeah.
Well,
You
if
can't
you
super glue
wanted,
it to a page.
yeah, I mean, like if you wanted to for display, what you would do, you'd probably pin it out the way I do tarantulas. So when I pin a tarantula, I take each of its tarsi and put them where I want them, and then I pin through the pads of the feet so that they don't draw up. And then if it's a female and I want the abdomen to stay plump, I slit it on the ventral side and then kind of pack in some cotton so it doesn't shrivel. So
okay.
it's kind of gross. Have you seen them mate before?
No, I haven't.
It is the most tender thing I have ever seen in nature. It's crazy. So we have
really?
them right around the building. And I was out at night and their eyes, you know, they shine back at you from like 50 feet. You can see them really far. And so I saw this really bright light, and it was before I kind of knew. And I was like, is that a snake? Like, why can I see it so brightly? But I moved towards it, and it was a female's eyes, and the male was on her back, and he faces the other direction so he can flee if he needs to. And he was holding her plump abdomen and like turning her and reaching underneath, you know, because they manually inseminate. And he was like, and it was so slow and tender, but he would do one side and then he would turn the other way and then turn the other way, but like really slowly, like 3 minutes.
Very gentle.
And I waited for like 20 minutes watching this. And I was like, okay, listen, I've been sitting here for a long time on the ground in the dark, waiting for this spider copulation thing. So finally, I just kind of put them in a container together. And I was walking back to the car, and it had been a great Jerusalem spider or Jerusalem cricket night. And I had already had Jerusalem crickets in every container conceivable. So I was like, okay, I got to just take this back. And by the time I got back to the car, he was gone. Like she had just chomped him to bits.
Just devoured him.
Sorry. Yeah.
You condemned this man to this fate.